Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to another project. In today's project, we're going to create a registration form. Basically, I'm going to show you how to create a registration form using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, just a bit of JavaScript, and Bootstrap. Yep, we're going to also use a bit of Bootstrap. Now, let me also show you what this form does. You can register. Actually, if you want to register, you're also going to have some basic authentication. Basically, you cannot register without filling out the input fields, where you could just type in your name, then your username. Now, this doesn't have a backend, so you can type in whatever you want. Then some kind of email, robert@mail.com, and a password, whatever password. Then if you click register, if everything is checked, then this will send you to a confirmation page where you will need to confirm your registration. Basically, in a regular registration, you would receive an email where you will follow a link and so on and so on. But in our case, I'm just going to simplify this step by just adding here a verification code. Now, the verify button is disabled. You can only enable it if you enter the right type of code. So if I start typing in here, let's say 455, and try to register, then it's going to prompt me with an alert, which is going to tell us that you need to enter 5 numbers. So let's enter 2 more. Let's click on OK here. Let's enter 2 more numbers, 2, 1. And if I now try to register, the registration button is going to turn green. Basically, it's going to be activated. The disable on it is going to disappear. I'm going to show you how to do this using JavaScript. So let's now click on verify, and this will send us to our welcome page. Basically, you're logged in or you're registered with your new account. Now let's go a bit back, because this project is actually, well, it is a standalone project. You could use it as a standalone project, and I'm also going to create it as a standalone project. But this is part of a larger project, which is a completely complete step-through form where you can sign in, register, and so on. So I'm also going to create the forgot password part of this. So if you click on this X button right here, then this will send you back to the registration form. Now from here, you will see that there is a sign in button. Now this sign in button, if you click it, it's going to send you back to the sign in form where you could sign in. Now in the sign in form, you can sign in with your username or email, also your password. You can click on this remember me, register now. This will send you back to the registration form. And now let's go back to our sign in form, or you could just sign in using Facebook, Twitter, and Gmail. Okay, this, if you click this, it's going to send you to Facebook, Twitter, and so forth and so on. Now, if I click the X button again, this is going to send me back to the landing page where you can either sign in or register. And this is the very first video that we did. So this is the project. Actually, no, this is the project, but this is the project. One last thing that I wanted to show you. Basically, if you click in one of these input fields, but we did take care of this in our sign-in form, then you can see the icons also turn blue, and this is done using JavaScript. I'm not going to code this again. The entire code is down in the description below, also the starting code. So just code along if you wish. If not, then just follow along. And if you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up. If you disliked it, give it a thumbs down. If you do want to see more projects like this, then please consider subscribing to my channel, and also clicking that notification bell. Also click notify all in order to get notified whenever I post new videos. So with this being said, let's just jump into the project. Oh, and by the way, one last thing, we're also going to use Font Awesome for the icons and Bootstrap for some basic styling. So the entire code is down in the description below, and also all of the links are down in the description below. So let's go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code and start the project. So if you have Visual Studio Code already opened up, just create a new folder. If you don't want to follow along with the series, if you did follow along with the series, or you want to, the entire series is down in the description below. So if you don't want to follow along with the series, just create a register HTML file outside. So just create a folder, create a register HTML file, because you already have this one created. Again, the code is down in the description below, so you could just download it and follow along with it. Now this file, and we're going to walk through this file very quickly. In our HTML tag, so let me just close up everything that we don't need. Let's just first close up our body. In our head, we have the link for Bootstrap. Okay, you can find this link by going to Bootstrap, clicking on Get Started, and copying the CSS link. So just copy on this, and if I would, well, not here. If I would paste it in right here, then this is going to be exactly the same link, but we don't need it. Now the Font Awesome link, again, we are in our head and we are above our title, which is going to be called register. Above this, we have a Font Awesome CDN link. Now this you can find from cdnjs.com library/font awesome. Again, the link for this is down in the description below, and just copy in this link right here. And this should be exactly the same link. Then we will link up our style.css, which you will find in the description below, because I think I'm kind of done with the styling for the entire page. So just copy in this style and then link it up. You don't need these two dots if you're in the same folder. As always, you just need to link it up like this. Okay, but in our case we are in the pages folder, so all of the pages, the sign in, the welcome, the registration, and we're going to create a new page here, the confirmation page, are in the pages folder. So this is why we need to go upwards. We need to go out of this pages folder and seek the CSS file. And the same thing, if we go down in our body, the same thing will be done for our validation.js, so our JavaScript file. Now let's also link this one up. So right down here, oh, let me finish it first of all with this part. This right here is the Bootstrap CDN for JavaScript. Basically, if you go back to Bootstrap and go down here where it says bundle, then you can copy this link, and this will make this right here. And this will make, let me show you the finished project. This will make this part work, because this is done using Bootstrap, this simple validation. If there's nothing in here, it's not going to recognize, it's not going to let you register. If you type something in, then it's going to have this, check mark. It's going to basically signify that this is okay, this input field is okay. Now let's also link up our JavaScript file. So let's go back here, type in script source, and for the source I'm going to go 2 levels up, / and then validation.js. If you're in the same folder, so if you just created your new registration.html file, then you don't need this part. Okay, so this is done. Now let's go over what we have in our body, our HTML, because we created this in our previous video. But this is just a simple main tag. This main tag has a couple of classes. These right here are Bootstrap classes. So the main tag has a class of row, a margin set to auto, then a shadow. Let me also show you this. If you open this folder up, this is the finished project. This is our project, and this is what you should see if you open this one up. So we have our main container with the title of register, which is in here, this h1. We're going to change this, and we have this, which is really important, this row class, which is going to create for us 2 columns. Because basically we have here 2 columns. Now the first column is for the form, and the second column is exactly as we had in our sign-in form, is for this right here, is for our image, which is basically, if you take a look in our finished project, which is basically this image right here. You can find it in the description below. Now the difference between this form and our sign-in form is that the sign-in form has the form on the left side and the registration form has the form on the right side. So let me first of all, in our project, insert the image, which you can find in the description below. Here's the image, and we can just copy. Should I just copy this? Yeah, I'm just going to copy this part. Well, let me create it for those of you who are just following on. So we're going to create an image tag, and the source for the file will be 1 level up, image and image. And we should see it right here because it's already been taken care of using our CSS. So for how large and how much width it should have. For the text, we're going to type in exactly the same thing that we had in our alternate text in our sign-in form, but I'm going to use this time the left column as a text. So let's go back into our registration, and this should be on the left side. Now this is not going to put it on the left side. Take a look in our registration. So in order to have this image on the left side, we just need to go up into our main class where we have row as a class defined. And now we're going to do something that is going to reverse, because this row, let me show you. If I do a right click, inspect, and body main, you will see here on the main this flex sign. This means that this is actually displayed as flex. Now what we can do with flex, you could use go back into our classes, we could use the flex-row-reverse class on it, which is going to, hey, not rocks, row, which should reverse the columns. Okay, so now we have this on the left side. Now one last thing that I want to do here is actually take out the padding. So I'm going to do padding x0, and also for this column, padding x on the x-axis 0, which is basically going to take out the padding, and yeah, it's going to take out the padding on the horizontal line. Okay, now let's take care of our form. Let's go back into our HTML file, and before the column, I actually want to create this X button right here. So let me put it before the form. So anchor tag, which is going to send us back to the index page. Now, in your case, if you're doing this as a single project, you don't necessarily have to type in the path, because the path for us is going to be one level up into the index file. Okay, now I'm going to use here also the icon, and with the class of fa dash solid, and then that dot, so this is using Emmet, fa x mark, exactly the same class that we used in our previous file, and this is going to give us this little x mark right here. Okay, basically this x is going to send us, if we click it, back to our registration. So if I click back, not only that, this should also work if I click register. Yep, it's going to send me to the registration page. Okay, so we're done with our X, we're done with our back. Now we can move on to our form. Now remember, the form, when it's submitted, it should send us somewhere. So the action for this, actually, in a real-life situation, well, not in a real-life situation, but this should send you to the backend. So this should get some kind of action, which should send a post or a GET request. But in our case, we're not using any kind of backend, so we're just simulating that it should go to the confirm registration page, registration.html page. And let me also create this. I'm just going to copy it, copy the name, click here, new file, and I'm going to call this HTML registration, and just going to create here empty file, shift exclamation mark is going to give me the doc type HTML. Let's type in here register, confirm registration, and just to check if this works, I will also need a submit button. So when we're going to submit this form, it is going to send us to this file right here. Now I'm going to close up this confirm registration for now. Let's just put in here a h1, confirm your registration. If you wish, you could just open it really quickly up, right click, open live server, and there we go, there's our web page. Okay, let's close this one up. You know what, I'm going to also close up this one, and also Phantasm, this one, and Bootstrap. We're done with Bootstrap, and there we go. So this is our project, and that was the finished one. So let's go back. We can also close up the confirm registration page. We don't need that. The sign-in form, I don't need that one. And yeah, let's continue on with our registration. So in our registration, where's the form? Where's the form? Here's the form. The form is going to get a property which is from Bootstrap, which is no validate. Now, when you have this property on it and you have linked up Bootstrap, it's not going to let you validate the form. So we're going to see this later on, unless the conditions are met. And our conditions are going to be extremely simple. We're just going to condition the inputs not to be empty. Okay. Now, this form also needs a couple of classes. I'm going to go back, type in class, and it's going to be displayed as row with a gap of 3 and needs validation, which is going to be a Bootstrap class. Needs dash validation. Okay. Now let's give this form a title. So right within the form tags, we're going to create an h2. Then I'm going to give this a class of text center, and I'm going to give it a margin from the bottom of -5. And let's type in here register now, register and now. So let's take a look. It should be, yeah, we have it here. Now we can get rid of this register, which is the h1 right here. Let's delete this one. And now let's create our input text. Now the first thing I'm going to create, and let me also type in here comment. We're going to create, let's type in create form username and password. Now you do know that I always urge you to comment out your code, and also type in here inputs. Now right within here, I'm going to create 2 divs with a class of display flags. So dot, I'm going to use Emmet, dflex, these are Bootstrap classes, and dot again padding p, not this one, p-0. I'm going to multiply this by 2. Okay, this is going to create me two times the same classes. Now in the first class, we're going to insert our icon with the class of fa dash. Let me also show you. So we're going to create this, which is going to be the full name, then the username, then the email, and then the password. Now, right after this comment, I'm going to create 4 fields. Actually, the last one is the registration, but I'm going to take care of this a bit later on. We're going to create one for full name, one for username, one for email, and one for password. So let's go ahead. I'm going to use Emmet here just to speed up a bit everything. I'm going to create a class of dflex, because everything that is going to be passed in here is going to be displayed as flex. Then it's going to have a padding dash 0. So I'm going to take out all of the padding that is already in Bootstrap. And each one of these containers is going to include a icon tag with the class of fa-solid and a input tag. So input, and that's it. So if we click on save, and this should be nothing here. So let's move the input tag. Now I'm going to wrap this icon tag into parentheses. And after it, I'm going to add a plus sign and type in input tag. So just input with the class form control. And now let's go outside our first parenthesis and pack everything into another parenthesis and then multiply it by 4, which is going to, you can already say Emmet is going to, you can already see that Emmet is showing you're going to get 4 divs with those classes and those input tags and those icons. Now let's take care of the very first input field. And also let's take a look at what we just created. We have here 4 input fields. The icons will be on the left side. So let's take care of the very first icon. The first icon will be fa-user. If we hit save, take a look. There we go. There's our user. After our user, we're going to take care of the next one, which is going to be fa-circle and dash user. It's going to give us another user, but with a circle this time. Now you see that this user has a border. This is because this class, if you take a look in our CSS, is included within here. So from our CSS, the class of fa-circle user is getting a border with a solid, a border with a 1 pixel solid and a variable custom color, which we defined in our previous video, and a padding of 0.5. So if I include here also the class of fa and user, this should also have exactly the same style. Now, because this is taking the JavaScript from our previous JavaScript from our validation, if you click in the input, you can see the icon color changing. So each input is associated to an icon. Okay, now let's take care of the next 2 icons. So let's go back into our HTML file. The next one will be envelope. So icon, solid, and fa-envelope, envelope. And the last one is going to be fa-solid, fa-solid. And the next one is going to be fa-key. So fa-. Now I already guessed it that the fa key is already having that style, but the envelope doesn't have its styling. So let's just copy this fa envelope, go back into CSS, put in here comma, dot, and fa envelope, and now you should also have the style for it. Okay, next up, let's move on to our input tags. Let's start from the top, from our user. The very first input is going to have a placeholder. So right after the class, you can type in placeholder, and this is going to be for full name. Then the next one, just going to copy this and hold down Option, click 1, 2, 3, paste it in here. And the next one is going to be username. Then the next one is going to be email. And the fourth one is going to be password. Okay, capital P. Now the types of the inputs, we also need to change them, because the last one is going to be password. The third one is going to be email. And the first 2, we can just leave them as text, because it's just inserting here text. Another property that we need to add to these inputs is the required property. This will make the fields mandatory. So let's hold down Option, click in the first one, the second one, the third one, And the last one, let's type in here required. Okay, so we got this part done. Next up, let's create, we have all 4 fields done. Next up, if you take a look in our finished project, let's create this registration button and sign in button. So I'm going to go down after the last input and after the last div. I'm going to go ahead and create another comment of create form registration and sign dash in buttons. Okay, let me scroll up a bit. And again, we're going to do exactly the same thing that we had off here. We're going to create a div with a dash flex class, then padding 0.0. Let's hit enter. Within here, we're going to create a div, another div with a class of call and a class of text center. Within here, I'm going to create a button tag, which is going to have the class of btn. This is using our Bootstrap classes and btn primary, and then padding on the x-axis of 3, and I'm going to tell it to take up the whole width of its input tag. Now this button needs to have the type of submit, because this button is going to submit our form, and for the text we're going to just type in here register. Okay, so let's take a look, and this should be here. So if I click this button, this should register the form. So let's click this button, and as you can see, it will stop us from registering because it's going to check for the validation. So if I start to type something in here, then it's going to make this valid. Now, accepting the email, because the email also needs a @ sign and then some sort of direction after it. Now, we're not using regular expressions or things like that, although I could include this in a much later video. And so this is just doing a basic validation. So it's just checking if there's something in here. And because this one is an email, it checks if it is the type of email, but it's only checking this @ sign. Okay, so now if I would register, then it will send us to the confirmation page. Okay, so this should already work. Now let's go back, and let's go also back to our HTML file. So we got our registration button. Next up, we need our button that is going to send us to the sign in form. So once again, I'm going to just copy the very first div. I don't want to repeat this. This is going to be a sign in title, but the type of this button is going to be button. The problem with the type is if I don't change it from submit to button, then it's going to try to submit the form. But that's not what I want to do. I want the button to just be a button. But this button is going to do something else. It should send us to the sign in form. So the way we can do that is by wrapping this one into an anchor tag. So let's create here an anchor tag. Let's say that this should go to sign and in, which is the name of this file, .html. Now remember, this file is within these pages, so we don't need to send it upwards. Okay. Now let's also give this a class of call and text center, and I'm going to put the button. So I'm going to select it, hold down Option or Alt on a PC, and one arrow up, and it's going to send the button into my anchor tag. And this should already work. So if you take a look in our project, here we go, sign in. And if I click on sign in, it should send me to the sign in page. Excellent. Now if I click on register, it should send me back to the registration page. Again, if you're just doing this as a single project, then just leave that as a, let me just show you. Just leave this as a star, a hash. And let me, if I'm here, also change this to a dark class. So btn dark. And if you do this, then the button is going to be dark. But now if I click on the sign in button, it's just going to refresh the page. So just going to show me this hash, okay? But I'm going to change this back to sign in HTML because I want this to send me back to my sign in. Now in our finished project, we also have here a separation. So this or this one right here. And this is pretty simple. We're just going to insert between these two columns another column. Let me create here a display flex padding -0, which is going to include, I'm going to open parentheses, 3 divs. The first div is going to be a column of -5, which is going to include a HR tag, which is just a horizontal line break, exactly as you can see down here in Emmet. Oh Jesus, I just showed you with my finger. Obviously you can see my finger on the monitor, but I'm going to hover over. So yeah, within this div, we're going to create a div with a column 5, which Now, if you know Bootstrap, you know that a row has 12 columns within Bootstrap. And we're basically saying that this one should take up 5 columns out of this 12 columns. Then I'm going to do a plus sign here. Actually, not here. Let me just think about it. I need another parenthesis. Okay, now we're going to follow this with another column. Okay, this is working. Now I'm going to follow this with another column, which is going to include another column, but this is also going to have the text secondary text dash center class, and it is going to include a small tag with a class of text secondary and the text of or. I'm going to wrap this again into a parenthesis and plus our last column. Oh, and by the way, this should be column dash 2. Sorry about that. And then this is going to include the last column, which is also going to be exactly as the first one. So I could just copy the very first one and paste it in here. Okay, so let me close up this parenthesis again. And do I need to include here something else? No. And if you hit enter now, then you should see this. One column, another column. Oh, sorry about that. I messed up. So this should be outside Control Z and Control X and Control Paste. So basically you should have one column with, you should have one div with a class of 5 columns and horizontal line break within that. Then another div with 2 columns, text center, which includes a small tag with the class of text secondary, and then another column, and this should look like, come on, this. Perfect. Okay. Now the footer, I'm just going to include the footer, which is basically a footer tag. So right after the form, I'm going to include the footer tag, which is just going to send you to my webpage where you can check out more tutorials, podcasts, and courses, of course. Courses, yay. Okay, so let's go back to our project. We have this part done. Now, after we successfully, so if you try to register, it doesn't work. But if we, actually, let me just type in here something normal. So Norbert M, then, do I have caps lock on? Sorry about that. Norbert BM and Norbert at mail.com and some kind of password and hit enter. Then this should send us to our registration, to our confirmation. Now, let's take care of this part. Let's take care of the confirmation page next up. It's going to remain within, well, let's remain within our confirmation page. Let's go to our confirmation page, and up here we need to include everything that we included. So before our title, we need to include everything that we included in our registration. So if I go up here, go right above the title and start copying until Bootstrap, until this comment. And what am I doing? Let's go in here above our title, paste everything in. Then we should have exactly the same styling. Okay, we have that background, we have the gray background, and we have the font family for the text, because now Bootstrap and Fontas are included. Now the confirmation page is extremely simple, so let me take care of this. Let's start up with the main tag, which is going to have the class of row, the class of margin auto, then class of shadow in order to have a shadow on our box, then the class of bg white, which is going to give us a white background color, and a class of padding on the x-axis of 0. Let's go ahead now and include, so let's go back to our registration form. Let's include our anchor tag, which is going to just send us back to the index file. I'm going to include it right here, but I'm going to wrap this one into a container. So class of dash container, and also margin from the top of 5, then text center. I'm going to push you above this container. Okay, so we should now see our X sign right here, which just send us back. Now let's go to register. Let's register again. And there we go. There's our X sign. Okay, next up, let me also click this one up. Let me show you how the registration page will look. So let's have this open right here. Okay, we need to create again a container, the image, the title right here, this text right here, and this part right here. So most of this, I'm just going to copy and paste in because I hope you know how to create a paragraph tag. So let me create the first column, which again, because this is displayed as row, we need 2 columns. The 2 columns, let's do for the second column again, exactly as we had in our registration form. So I could just copy this part right in here. Let's actually take it like this. So let's take this column, copy it in. I'm going to replace it with this, because it's going to have the image on the right side. Then let's already paste in the footer tag from registration. You could just copy in the footer, copy the footer, go to the confirmation page again, and let's paste it in the first column. So we should already see. Let's take a look here. There we go. There's our footer and there's the image. So we're done with the right part of the page. Now within the left part where we're going to insert our confirmation, I'm first going to create a container. So right about the footer, we're going to go in here, create a class of container. I'm also going to give this a margin from the top of M5, then a text center. So I think that we're going to put in this container is going to have the text center. And now we can create our exclamation mark icon here, which you just need to include it from font awesome. So I.fa-solid dot, so another class fa circle dash circle dash exclamation and dot fa dash 10x, because this is going to be 10 times larger. And the last thing that I want to include here is the text of warnings. This is going to give me a yellow color. So let's hit on save and let's take a look. Hey, aren't you forgot an N here. Warning. Okay, now this should be yellow. Perfect. Underneath of this, we're going to create our H2, which is going to be the title. So a H2 with a class of margin on the y-axis now of 5. And for the text, just going to copy in confirm registration. And next thing is going to be a paragraph tag, which is just going to have this text within it. Okay, so you should already see this. Next up, we need our form, because if you take a look in our finished project, this right here is actually a form which has one input and one submit button and one small little icon tag here. So let's take care of this. Right after the div with the class of container, we're going to create our form. Now this form as an action will be sent to the welcome.html file. So if this form is submitted successfully, it's going to send us to the welcome page. And within here is pretty simple, just going to create a dflex, so display flex, then dot padding 0. Within here, we're going to have our icon tags of fa-solid and fa code. And again, we need to include this fa code into our style. Here, dot fa code, go back to the registration. After the icon tag, we're going to have our input tag, the type of number this time, so only numbers can be inserted into this icon tag. Then the class of form control, and then text center. And if you already take a look at this, this should be, hey, moved out of there. Let me just move back, and there we go. Now let us also make the icon work, which is just basically copying in the script. So linking up our, let me actually do it this way. So above the body tag, let's do script and validation, okay, which is going to include the JavaScript file. Now we're not done with our input tag. We still need a placeholder, which is just going to say, let's say here, validation code. So validation code, and this field is required. And then after this input tag, we're going to create our button, which is going to be the submit button. So button with the class of ptn.ptn success and then .ms margin to the start of 2. So it's going to push it to the left side a bit. And the type of this button, so type will be submit. Okay. And now let's type in here title, verify. Let's take a look at our button. And now the button is here and it's green and we could verify, but this field is mandatory. So we need to type something in and click on verify. This should send us to the welcome page. Now let's go back and let's make this, I just clicked it again. Sorry about that. Let's make this button disabled. This is pretty simple. We're just going to type into the button as a property. So right after type submit, or you could type it every way you want, because all of these are properties. Class is a property, type is a property, and let's give it the property of disabled. Okay, and now we can no longer click the button because it's disabled, which makes us unable to submit this form. So how can we make this button enabled? How can we enable this button? This is pretty simple. I'm going to create down here the script for this. So let's create within script tags. And once again, if you didn't follow along with the series, I'm kind of simulating here like a framework. Within a framework, you would do your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in React. For example, you would do it in one place. This is why I'm not going to type in my JavaScript for this specific file in the validation in this JavaScript file, because the scope of this script will be only this file. Okay, hope this makes sense for you. Now I'm going to use here a function that will be automatically executed. So parentheses, function, then open close parentheses, open close curly brackets, and I move outside these parentheses and open close parentheses again, which is going to automatically execute the function. In order to demonstrate this, let's just create here a console log of, let's say first, whatever. If we take a look in our project and we go to the console, you will see first down here. Okay, this object comes from another console log from our validation, but you can see first comes from confirm registration HTML from the line 64. So basically exactly from here. If I change this to Norbert, then you should see Norbert. Excellent. So this function is executing. As soon as this file is running, then the function is executing. And what do we want this function to do? Well, let's first of all take care of our input, which we're just going to grab on by using a const, a variable called with the keyword const input. We're going to call this input. We're going to go to the document, and from here using query selector, we're going to select our input. Now remember, there's only one input tag within this entire document, and this is this one. So I'm not going to use a specific ID or class on it. Next up, we're going to select our button. So const again. Let's call this submit btn. Let's go ahead, document dot query selector. I'm going to select the only button tag, button, within our entire document. Now I'm going to grab onto the input. I'm going to use an event listener on it, but I'm not going to do add event listener and we're going to listen for the event, and when that event happens, then function. I'm going to use the event of onchange on it. It's basically the same thing as using add event listener and so on and so on. Now we're going to assign this to a error function, to callback function. When this event is fired on this button, on this input, so when something changes, then we're going to first of all create, let me scroll up here, a condition. So if the input dot value is not equal to a empty string, and the input dot value dot length, so if its length is equal to 5, then the submit button dot disable, so I'm going to grab onto its property, is false. I'm going to set it to false, which will make it enabled. Okay, so I'm going to tell that this disabled property is false. It's going to enable it. Now else, if this condition is not met, so both of these conditions, it needs to be not empty and the length of it needs to be 5. So not less or greater than 5, but explicitly 5. Else, I'm going to alert the window with the text of code verification code needs to be 5 numbers and exclamation mark. And I'm going to force, so after this, after we'll click on OK, I'm going to force the submit button, so I'm just going to copy and paste this again, to true. So I'm going to set its disable property to true again. So let's take a look. So if I will try to type in, first of all, let's try on typing a text. Doesn't work. Numbers, it does work, but if I want to verify it, so clicking outside of it, then it's going to alert us that, hey, you need to use 5 numbers. So let's click on OK. Go ahead, use 5 numbers, and now I have 6. So let's click on OK, let's delete one, and now the button works. And if I click on verify, that is going to verify the page. And that's basically it for this part of the project, and also the end of the video. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, as always, please leave me a like. Also, leave me a comment for if you have any kind of questions or suggestions, leave them in the comment section below. Or if you want to send me kisses and love, leave them in the comment section below. If you're not subscribed to the channel, then please consider doing so. I'm posting videos like this on a regular basis. I'm teaching you web development, hopefully. Hope you had fun, hope you enjoyed the video, and catch you on the flip side. Bye bye.